Good morning, madam.
Hello.
Hello.
హలో క్లాస్ స్టార్ట్ అవ్వలేదా ఇంకా?
Yes, good morning.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ మ్యామ్.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. Okay.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
In previous class, that is yesterday, we started
Madam, good morning, madam.
business finance, right? Under the business finance, we discussed about.
Madam, good morning, madam.
Good morning. We'll stop saying good morning and we'll start class.
अकाउंट्स
Good morning, madam.
देखना है 11:30.
Morning. Okay, children, let's restart. Continue with our class. I'm sharing screen here. Please do follow. Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So we discussed about what is the finance, what is the meaning by business finance, and what are the different types of finance we have, nature of finance, and importance of finance, factors that determining the need for funds of a business, right? And later we also discuss about working capital. Working capital is amount of capital that is required to meet day-to-day expenses of the organization. We have different definitions of working capital uh, given by different authors and different people. So in simple, we also can call working capital as a circulating capital or a short-term capital. So we always there are two concepts of working capital: balance sheet concept and operating cycle concept. Balance sheet concept means generally we say working capital as gross working capital and net working capital. Only current assets, if you take, we say it as a gross working capital. If you take current assets minus current liabilities, then we say as a net working capital. And from operating cycle concept, capital that is required based on the duration, capital that is required to convert the sales, means whatever the resources are there, required to convert the resources into sales, to convert the resources into sales, whatever the time that we takes, that depending on that we say working capital. Okay. So that is net working capital, current assets minus current liabilities. A positive means current assets are more than the current liabilities. Negative working capital means where current liabilities more than the current assets. If a positive current assets says that a company is in a good position to meet its day-to-day activities. Current liabilities means if current liabilities are more means company is finding difficulty in meeting its day-to-day requirements. So if you see that gross working capital focuses on optimization of investment in current and financing of current assets. Net working capital focuses on liquidity position, means how good a company in meeting its daily expenses, right? So we also learned about importance of working capital, because if a company has a sufficient working capital means it is good in meeting its business operations, continuing its business operations, any interruption. And when business operations are continued without any operation, there is a possibility of having a good profit and good enhancement of goodwill and improving the credit worthiness. Also shows advantage of buying the inventory when they can also get the advantage of getting purchase of inventory when the prices are lower. So we also discussed about the factors that are determining working capital requirements: internal factors, external factors. Depending on the factors that show their impact on the business, the amount of working capital requires depends. So each of those factors have their impact. Now let us see about different sources of finance. In today's class, we are going to discuss about different sources of finance. Under the we have forms of business entities we learned in our first unit, right? Different forms of business entity. Under that, we have sole trader or sole proprietor form of business entity, joint Hindu family system, partnership, joint stock companies, and cooperative societies, right? So depending, as we said, finance requirements of any form depends on its size and nature of business. So let us see. But now the second thing is, okay, finance requirement depends on its size and nature of business. But what are the sources available for these institutions or to these entities is what we are going to discuss. And if you look into the traditional type of business entity, means traditional sources that are available for different business entities. First, sole proprietor business means single owner. Single owner, in there only we said under the features of sole proprietor, capital. How do he bring the capital? Owner, sole proprietor. We learned that. Can anyone? Yeah. So he brings his capital from his own sources, his own funds, whatever available with him, right? Or from his the funds that he borrowed from his family, friends, and relatives. Okay. Generally, he go for the financial assistance, raising of loans to commercial banks, but only short-term funds he can raise. So overall, the financial requirement of sole proprietorship form, the sources available are own funds that he raised from his own sources. Okay, whatever the owner, that single individual is there, from his own sources, whatever are available, he raises, like from his family, friends, and relatives, or small or short-term loans from the commercial banks. Next, partnership. Partnership form and the sources of the form finance to these partnership forms. Again, in partnership, who are the members? Partners, that the individuals who join together, they are limited. So here also, these individuals are carrying on their business for their own interest and investing their own capitals. So the funds available to these partnership form also from the own funds of the individual partners who joined in the partnership firm. Same like individual sole proprietor, here also only the difference is number of persons or members are more than the sole proprietor. So even in partnership form, the source available, financial sources available to partners are their own savings and their parental savings, whatever are there, or whatever the ancestral properties they are, and whatever the funds they borrowed from their family, relatives, and friends, and they whatever the loans they raised from the commercial banks or from any unorganized sectors. This is only the source of finance for the partnership work. So remember, for sole proprietorship and partnership, you will have the almost same sources of finance. Only the difference there, one person only brings all the from his own sources. Here, each of the partner brings such finance from such sources. So the number is more, so funds are more. That's only the difference. The next one is companies. Finance, anyway, joint Hindu family system, why we didn't discuss as joint Hindu family system, it's a family oriented business. From their ancestor time, they continue the business. So those properties, assets, business, funds, whatever that only becomes the funds or finance, source of finance for the joint Hindu family system. After that, we have a joint stock company. This joint stock company sources. What are the sources that are available to the joint stock companies? If you look into that, own funds, borrowed funds, in two sources. Okay, own funds, equity share capital, preferential share capital, retained earnings. Okay, even joint stock companies have two sources of funds, that is from their own funds and from their preferential share capitals and from the retained earnings. So these are own funds we treat up. And the funds that they raise from the outsiders by borrowing, those are said to be the borrowed funds. They like debentures, borrowing from banks, public deposits, trade credits. These are the borrowed funds which they borrowed from outsiders. Let us see about each of these fund sources again. The first one is own funds. Under own funds, we have equity shares. Okay, so what is equity shares? What are equity shares? Equity shares means generally under joint stock companies formation, I told you, joint stock companies raise their capital from the public by dividing their capital into small units called shares, and each share has been given a value called share value. So they raise their capital from the public in the form of shares. Okay, those people who invested in the shares is called as a shareholder. Okay, is called as a shareholder. So these shareholders, by investing their savings in the companies, means these investors who invest in the shares of a company becomes the shareholder. If he invests in the equity shares, he'll become a equity shareholder, and he gets share in the profits of the company. Not only share in the profits of the company, he also bears the loss. Loss to the extent of what? To the extent of investment made in the form of shares in the company. Okay, he becomes a shareholder by investing, by purchasing the shares, and he enjoys the profits of the company in the form of dividends. Okay, upon the shares, whatever the profits distributed to the shareholders by the company are called as dividends, and these dividends will be paid to the equity shareholders only when profits are available. But they also take the losses because and what extent? To the extent of the shares held by, because the members liability in joint stock companies is limited by shares or limited by guarantee, right? So that's how they bear the loss, but to the extent of the shares held by them. And equity share, these shareholders are called as real owners of the company. Why do we call them real owners of the company? Because they get the share in the company profits only when profits are available, and that too after payment of all other outsider liabilities and the preferential shareholders. We get that also later. Okay, so equity shareholders get their profits, a share in the profits of the company in the form of dividends only when the profits are left after payment, all payments are made, and they take the risk. Okay, so these are called as the real owners of the company, and these equity shareholders have voting rights in the meetings of the company. They do participate in the voting meetings of the company, and they do take voting. Okay, cast their votes based on the number of votes held by them. Number of shares held by them. Next, as their voting rights are there in the sense that they also take part in the management of a company. Okay, so the risk and return both are high to these equity shareholders because the risk return. Risk is what? If company makes the profits only they get, and that too no guarantee. If a company has a profits only they get a shares, and also children, please concentrate on class first. I'm disabling the chart also. I just gave you the chance of a chart. If you have any technical issues to solve that, but other than the subject you all are discussing unnecessarily, please concentrate. So equity shares, the risk only if profits are available, that too after making all the payments. Okay, and if after making all payments, whatever profits are there, almost the maximum share they get if a company gets a high profits. So risk is more and returns also high. Next one is preferential shares. The next type of own funds the companies have. The source of fund for the company is preferential shares. So what are these preferential shares? Why do they be called? The name only telling preferential shares. That means these are the shareholders who get their share given preference in the payment of dividend and repayment of capital at the time of winding up of a company. That means first preference. Once company made a profits means the first preference of paying the profits in the form of dividends will be given to these shareholders. After payment of preferential shareholder dividends only, equity shareholders will be paid the dividend. And not only in the terms of payment of dividend, but also if a company goes into liquidation or that is winding up, That time, at that time also, first preferential shareholders funds will be returned, then only the leftover amount will be paid to the equity shareholders. That's how they get a preference. So remember, preferential, why do we call? They will be given preference in payment of dividend and preference in a repayment of capital at the time of winding up of a company. Okay, that is the reason why we call them as a preferential shareholders. And the dividend that they pay to on preferential shareholders is high. Okay, like is a fixed amount, not high, sorry. It's a fixed. If you see any company annual report, if they have even your accounts, you'll get 10% preferential share capital or 12% preferential share capital. What does that mean? And that percentage prefixing the preferential share capital term, it is nothing but that percentage indicates the rate of dividend payable on those preferential shareholders. Okay, so 12% preferential share capital, 10% preferential capital, 8% preferential share capital. Like that, you will find in the balance sheet when preferential share capital amount, the prefixing the preferential share capital term, you will find a percentage 8%, 10%, 12%. That indicates the rate of dividend payable to the preferential upon the preferential shares. Okay, that means they'll get a fixed dividend. Okay, irrespective of the company profits. Next, these shareholders will have only, they are the owners of the company, but they don't enjoy any voting rights and they don't participate in any meetings of the company because, okay, sometimes, again, these preferential shares have different types of preferential shares. Their capitals will be redeemed after a long period of time. Remember, children, capital means owner investment. When as a owner, when you invested in your business, when do you want to take back your investment? Only when you are closing your business. As long as you run your business, you keep your investment in the business and you make sure that your investment rotates in the business and makes double your revenues, right? You don't want to take it back, right? You are taking back in the sense you are closing your business. Okay. And same way here, shareholders means who? Owners. So owners in the sense, whatever they invested in the company, they'll get back their investments only when company goes into liquidation or winding up. So here, equity shareholders, same, but for preferential shareholders, after a long period, certain period, like after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, like that, after certain long period of time, they can get back their investments back from the company. Okay, that is what a redemption, repayment of investment in the form of share capital. Okay, so preferential shares will get a maximum redemption period after 20 years. As I said, we have different types of preferential shares. And just a minute, hold on. What are those right to, based on the right to dividend, based on option to convert, based on right to vote? We have we classified preferential shares into 3 types. So based on right to vote, based on option to convert, based on right to dividend. So let us see about these types of preferential shares in detail. Yeah, I'll explain here only. Right to dividend, like cumulative preferential shares, non-cumulative preferential shares. What does it mean by cumulative preferential shares? Like say the dividend. What did I say? Dividend means the share in the profit. The profits that are distributed on shares is called as a dividend. So this cumulative preferential means the shareholders who are possessing cumulative preferential shares will have a right to get their dividends even when company makes a losses. Generally, being a owner, when you get your profit or share of profit only when company makes the profits, right? But these shareholders get the profit share in the profits of company when company makes a losses also. Say for example 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, these 6 years, out of 6 years company made a 2 years losses. Okay, so those 2 years losses also will be accumulated, and the share of their profits in those 2 years also will be accumulated and paid in the next year. Okay, that is the reason why cumulative. I think if you are working, you used to use to call a term called arrears, or we received arrears. Arrears means what? The amount which you earn but not paid, right? The amount which you earn but not paid, which will be paid on a particular period after completion of that period, right? So same way, cumulative means the profits, the share in the dividend profits, means these type of shareholders get their dividends when company makes the losses in the years when, and that will be paid in the year when company makes the profits. So cumulative, the cumulates 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2015 onwards, company made a losses. So 15, 16, 17, the company made losses. 18, 19, company made a profit. So 15, 16, 17 share of profit share, whatever the dividends are to be paid, that amount will be accumulated and paid in the year 18 and 19. Okay. So next one is non-cumulative preferential shares. Means what? They will not. Means they get a share of profits in the form of dividends only in the years when company makes the profits. The years when company make losses, no share of dividend paid to the shareholders. Non-cumulative means their dividend per year when it is not paid will not be cumulated. Only in the year when company makes profits will be paid. That is the reason why they are called as non-cumulative. The next, option to convert means what? Generally, preferential shareholders, after a certain lock-in period, like 3 years or 5 years, can be converted, allowed to convert their preferential shares into equity shares. So, preferential shares which can be converted into equity shares after a certain period of lock-in period are called as convertible preferential shares. Okay, and the next one is non-convertible preferential shares. Means these are the shares which cannot be converted into preferential equity shares. So they cannot. They joined as a preferential shares. They have to continue as a preferential shareholders only. They cannot convert into the equity shares. That is what mean by non-convertible. Next, right to vote. Based on the right to vote, again we have two types of preferential shares: participating preferential shares, non-participating preferential shares. What does it mean by participating preferential shares? Like these preferential shareholders will have a right to take part in the meetings of the company and do take a vote in the meetings of the company. So a preferential shareholders who has right to take part in the meetings of the company and vote in the meetings of the company are called as participating preferential shares. Non-participating is, they will not have any rights. Not only that, they can take part in the additional profits of the company. These participating preferential shareholders take part in the, they'll get back their usual share of dividend. If any excess profits are there with the company, they'll also take part in the additional profits of the company. That is how participating preferential shares. Non-participating means they don't participate in the meetings like normal preferential shareholder, and they don't get any additional share of the profits of a company. Understood? Yeah. Let us come to joint stock companies, the external sources or outsiders funds. Okay, the source of funds that raised from outsiders or from external sources or borrowings from public. And that the first one is debentures. What does it mean by debenture? Debenture is a instrument that is issued by the company under its common sale against a collateral security. What is that? Nothing we understood, madam, right? Right. See, a company, say, Reliance company, if a company, whatever, generally when a company capital is not, when company raises capital in the form of shares is not sufficient, then it go to raise its capital by borrowing from the public. A company whose capital is not sufficient, which is raised in the form of shares, will go for raising their capital from the public by borrowing from the public. You may get a, what is this, ma'am, borrowing from? Yeah, why can't? When a company is inviting you to invest your savings in the form of shares and making you as a owner, same way a company can borrow from the public. So, but if you say that I lent money to Reliance or lent money to Tata, anyone believe? No, na. So, to a proof saying that yes, this is the amount, these are the number of debentures, and this is the value of debenture, and that this is the total amount of that borrowed from the Mr. X, or borrowed from, what are your names here? Nishad, borrowed from Nishad, Abhinav, okay, like that. If a company says Aparna, okay, I borrowed from Nishad, these are 10,000 shares of 10 rupees each, borrowed from total 1 lakh, borrowed from Nishad, Aparna 1 lakh. If companies say, you say, I lent money to nobody. So company give a certificate, an instrument on a document. It says, so 10,000 debentures of 10 rupees each is borrowed from Aparna or Abhan, or whoever, from whoever it takes, as a debenture, and the rate of 10% of interest is agreed to be payable on the debenture with a collateral service. Something like that, some like agreement, promissory note, you know, no? But company, from the company, it's not promissory note. From the company side, it issues a document saying that it has it owes to the investor. Okay, so it borrows. So in simple, again, I'll come back. So this is all I said to make you understand the concept. Okay. So what does the debenture mean? Debenture is an instrument which is issued by a company under its common seal with a collateral security, offering some physical assets as a collateral security. Okay. And upon this, what is collateral security? You see, when you go to, like, you need to offer some bank loan. If you go, what the company, bankers do, they'll ask you to give some gold, keep your gold or the documents with them, and upon that they'll give you the loan, right? So whatever the documents you are offering as security against the loan that you are taking, so we call as a collateral securities. Okay. So upon these debentures, company pays some interest. Okay, because it is borrowing, na? So here we say it is interest. Okay, the amount paid by the company upon the debentures to the debenture holders we call as interest, because it is borrowing in the form of debentures from the investor. So we call it as a interest. When interest is paid by the company, usually it is going to be fixed amount, fixed rate of interest. Okay, so on debentures, company pays fixed rate of interest, and amount of the principal amount, whatever is taken, will be repaid after a certain period of time, like 5 years, 10 years, like that. Okay, risk averse investors invest in debentures. Who invest in the debentures? The people who don't want to take risk but wants to get more interest than in the bank interest go for the investing in debentures, because you get your returns every, irrespective of the company profits. Debenture holders can get the interest, fixed rate of interest regularly, and pay their principal amount whatever they invested in the company by lending, that also they'll get back irrespective of the company losses. That's the reason why risk the people who don't want to take the risk go for raising of loans from the public. Go for debentures. Again, we have different types of debentures. Security, based on security, based on tenure, based on mode of redemption. Based on security, we have secured debentures, unsecured debentures. Like a company offers security against the amount borrowed, like in the form of fixed assets. And unsecured debentures means company will not offer any collateral security. Tenure, children, we have modern also. That's why I'm just running. Based on tenure, redeemable debentures, irredeemable debentures. Redeemable debentures means what? Debentures which can be repayable after certain period of time. Actually, a majority of the debentures are repayable debentures, but if there are certain debentures which are not redeemable in the after period, but only at the time of winding up of a company. Redeemable means repayment of the principal amount. If a debentures are getting repaid the principal amount after a period like 5 years, 10 years, we call them as a redeemable debentures. If a debentures are repaid only on winding up of a company, we call them as a irredeemable debentures. You need to learn about these terms. Again, in company accounts, you get some certain terms relating to this. The next, mode of redemption. Based on the repayment type, means how do they get their principal amount repaid? We have two types: convertible, non-convertible. Means company allow them to convert after that particular period of time when they are supposed to be paid. Company allows them to convert their debentures into equity shares. Okay, instead of making payment of their principal amount, to the extent of the principal amount, their debentures will be converted into equity shares. Then instead of debenture holder, he will become a shareholder of the company. Okay, then those are called convertible. Non-convertible means they cannot be convertible into equity shares. Instead, they will be paid immediately on the expiry of the term. Okay, partly convertible debentures means some debentures will be converted into shares and some debentures amount will be paid. That is about types of debentures. The other source of finance to joint stock companies, public deposits. You may get it out. Madam, public deposits means deposits with the bank now? No. Whatever deposits you make with the bank, fixed deposits you make with the bank, why do you, if you have excess money with you, what do? You take that amount and you deposit, you keep it under a fixed deposit with the bank. What is the rate of interest bank will pay you? 6% per annum or 7% per annum. Like that, a fixed rate of interest, it pays, the bank pays upon your amount. And that fixed deposit in a sense, 1 year, 2 years, like that, for a fixed period of time, a fixed lump sum amount you deposit with the bank and will pay you some rate of interest upon that amount deposited, right? Same thing if you do with the company. Companies also accept the deposit from the public. Okay, means you invest your money with, you deposit your savings with us, we pay you higher rate of interest than the bank. That way they accept the deposits from the public, and whatever deposits they accept from the public they use for the business, and upon that they'll pay the interest. Again, whatever the period they accept these deposits, at the end of that period the deposited amount by the investor will be returned back. So this again safe. Okay, because you are it's a kind of borrowing. So this kind of deposit, public deposits, for the investors are safe. depositing with the companies in the form of public deposits, upon which company pays a fixed rate of interest, and their deposit money will be returned after a period of time, and what between that it uses for its reserve. So then generally fixed deposits funds are used to meet its working capital requirements, cash credits, overdraft, discounting bills, all these also borrowing from banks. Okay. Borrowing from banks means company also, apart from public deposits, companies go to borrow, take loans from the banks. Again, it has a different types of loans. It has a different types of loans like short-term loans, medium-term loans, long-term loans, different types of loans are there. But to meet its different purposes, it go for raising of loans from the bank. Retained earnings. Yes. What are these retained earnings? Again, you get this term also in your other subject. So retained earnings in the sense funds that are like after distribution of all profits to all the shareholders and all payments of all payments and whatever profits are left, or after distributing those profits to the other shareholders, whatever profits are there, certain percentage of profits are kept aside by the company to meet its uncertainties, okay, contingencies. So that funds after certain period of time, if not used for any other purpose, will can be used that those funds are called as retained earnings. Say generally what as individual you also what you do, if you are earning some 25,000, your expenses are 15,000, and your savings are 5,000. More 5,000, your daily expenses for traveling to office and all 3,000, 2,000 you are having. So you what do? You keep that 2,000 aside, right? You keep that 2,000 aside to meet any other emergencies. So after some 5 months, how much that becomes 10,000. So this 10,000 money you can or some here and there. Not necessarily every month you keep 2,000 only. Sometimes excess money 2,000, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 500 only. So whatever after certain period, whatever the amount you kept aside apart from all your savings expenses and routine expenses, that is called as your retained earnings. And what you do that retained earnings, any emergencies or for any other purpose you need ways, you can use instead of you go out and borrow from outsiders. Same thing company do, whatever out of its total profit, such a certain percentage it keeps aside to meet its emergencies and contingencies. So that funds that kind of funds we call as a retained earnings, and these are used by company in order to meet its working capital account expenses and enables the company to stand with the seasonal reactions and business fluctuations. That's about sources of finance under traditional. We have so many others. Okay, these are only the other category way I showed this. You also can divide these sources of finance in the other format: long-term sources, short-term sources. Okay. In the beginning of these sources of finance, I told you this way: own funds, borrowed funds. Again, if you combine all these own funds and borrowed funds and classify on the basis of their term period, we have long-term source funds and short-term sources of funds. Okay. Now, yes, let us come to modern sources of funds. Modern sources of funds are like leasing, like in the modern days, in order to meet the financial needs of the company, various financial needs of the company, and many startups are coming, many small entities are coming, and okay. So to meet this, various companies came with various so means various companies are established to finance the business entities with the different types of options. So under that we have different sources of finance, unconventional sources of finance like leasing, hire purchase, angel investment, venture capital, private equity, crowdfunding, bootstrapping, innovative capital marketing investments. Yes. Let us see what is leasing means. Leasing is the one. What happens? Strength is coming has come down. Let us see. Sorry. Yes. What is leasing means? Leasing is like a kind of long-term rental agreement. Leasing is a long-term rental agreement, like business entities. In business entities, generally, people hire the building the rent a building for the purpose of production activities, or hire some machinery for machine for the purpose of production activities for a long term basis, on a long term basis, upon which company pays rent, lease rent, on a contract basis, like 10 years, 5 years period, like that. For a long period of time, they hire the building or machines from the owner. So leasing is the one which a contract outlining the terms under which one party agrees to rent the property owned by the another party. So lease guarantees the tenant, that is for a long period of time, that the owner will not disturb him and he can use that asset or the building, okay, and he upon which he pays the amount on a regular basis. Right? Lease are legal and binding contracts that set forth the terms of rental agreements in real estate and real and personal properties. The next, hire purchase. This is hire purchase system. What is hire purchase system? I think you all know about the installment system, right? What is installment system? We used to buy our televisions, mobile phones, various household things on installment basis. What do you do there? You purchase, you pay some initial payment, and you own that a TV or whatever electronic, and you pay the balance of the TV, television, or mobile price on a installments, right? Right? And the thing, if you don't pay these installments, what will happen? That the company or the showroom will file a case against you for not paying, but it cannot take, right? So here, leasing in the sorry, hire purchase, a similar little difference is there. What is that difference? Under hire purchase system, upon the cash price of the asset, he'll add some interest. Like a hire purchase system, same. The total price of the asset will be divided into installments, and first he'll pay the some amount as a down payment, which is like a deposit, and for the remaining years, he will pay the remaining balance. He'll pay in installments. But the ownership of this asset will be transferred only at the end of the last installment, on payment of the last installment, hire purchase. Okay, so hire purchase system is similar to installment. The difference between the installment and hire purchase: in installment, ownership, title of ownership transfers to the buyer immediately on purchase. In hire purchase system, title of ownership transferred to the buyer on payment of last installment. That is the difference. And the second difference, hire purchase system, is that hire purchase system, whatever the installments you pay, those are called as rent. Okay. Look at here, with a hire purchase agreement, after all payments have been made, the business customer becomes the owner of the equipment, and this ownership transfers either automatically or on payment of an option purchase. Okay. And I said, and if during these installments, if the buyer does not fail to pay the installments continuously, or if he fails to make regular payment of installments, then the seller has the right to take back the asset. Seller has the right to take back the asset. Okay. And if at the end of the last installment also, if the buyer wants to keep the property and wants to, then only ownership transfers. Otherwise, he can return also, because he's paying as a rent, like in the form of rent for using the asset. Okay. The next one is angel investment. Angel investment is an experienced industry person who provides needed funds for small startups or entrepreneurs. How many of you, I would like to enable the chat. How many of you watched Shark Tanks in Sony television? I would like to hear how many of you watched Shark Tank in Sony television. Children, I able. Yeah, very good. Two has raised their hand. What is that? It's nothing but angel investment. What they did, they invited the entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs and startups that are in the market, and they inquired. Means interacted with them. They inquired, collected the details, and tested their commercial feasibility and their product, what commercial feasibility it has, and what sort of support they want, they asked, and based on when they felt that they are going to make the good business, they gave their share of investment in those startups and for those entrepreneurs. That's kind of angel investment. You got understood, right? So angel investor is an experienced industry person who provides new entrepreneurs or new business entities the funds for small startups. Okay. And apart from funds, they also provide the time, the experience, network, marketing strategies that they help. Okay. And everything they help apart from the investing in those companies. Sanjay Mehta, an angel investor, has invested in several startups like, yes, Oyo rooms, Sanjay Mehta. If you can take the recent examples of this Shark Tanks. These Shark Tanks, many of the sharks invested in many startups, right? Okay. The next one is venture capital. Venture capital is money provided to seed early stage emerging growth companies. Here, invest in companies. Venture capitalists invest in companies in exchange for equity in the companies they invest in, which usually have a novel technology or business model in high technology industries such as biotechnology and IT. Yes. We can also take this venture capitaling. Here, what they did, it's a combination. What they did here, they see angel investor in the sense he just invests in the companies. No share we heard here. It's network and energy. He shares his network. Okay. They invest in that companies. Here he takes shares in the company equities, exchange of equity. See, venture capital funds invest in companies in exchange for equity in the companies they invest in, which usually have a novel technology or business model in high technological industries. Okay, but big industries they invest, which has a possibility for growth. Example, Food Panda invested in venture capital firm Rocket Internet. Next, private equity. That is, private equity consists of investors and funds that make investments directly into private companies. Oh, what happened? Right. Started. Okay. So private equity consists of investors and funds that make investments directly into the private companies or conduct buyouts of public companies that result in a delisting of public equity. Sometimes private companies. Recently, see, what is that? Private equity. Sorry, Airways. The Tata has taken the Indian Airways, right? So private equity investors and funds make a investment directly. Private company invested, like private company, Tata took over the Indian Airlines buyout, right? Buyout of public company that results in a delisting of public equity. Right, capital for private equity is raised from the retail and institutional investors and can be used to fund new technologies, like Just Dial is a kind of such one. And the local search engine was funded by private equity investors like Capital and SAP Ventures. Yes, actually, these I made in the previous year, so I did not update it. And in these 2 years, so many same came into existence. That is, Tata company taken over the Indian Airways. So that's like private equity. Okay, and now this Tata company funds are invested in that, and it can go for raising of further capital by issue of shares to the public. That is different. Now, crowdfunding. The next one is crowdfunding is small amounts of capital from a large number of people to finance a new venture. Makes use of vast networks of friends, family, followers through social media platforms. Crowdfunding. This is upcoming modern unconventional source of finance, where companies go for raising of their funds, small startups, new ventures, the small owners, business entities who are into business, going to raise their funds through crowdfunding from their friends, family, followers, through using the social media. They raise their capital through the crowdfunding. Okay, so these are some of the modern sources of finance. So thank you, all of you. And if you have any doubts, you can ask. Please don't ask about your examinations, timetables, date of examinations, 3 days, and all centers. Please, that's no. Other than that, you can ask your questions relating to the today's topic. I'm enabling. You can unmute yourself and you can ask your questions relating to today's topic.
Madam,
Ma'am, can
excuse
you
me, ma'am.
please, ma'am, can you please explain one more time debenture?
Debentures are the instrument, like a document, a certificate that is issued by the company under its common seal. Common seal means it's a stamp. Okay, with the company stamp. Okay, proving that the company has borrowed so and so amount from the so and so person in the form of debentures. Number of debentures, the value of debenture will be given on that. So it's like an instrument issued by company under its common seal, and against the debentures, company offers some what you call company offers security, means some fixed assets as a security. Okay, so those fixed assets, if a company fails to make repayment of the debenture holders funds, then these debenture holders will be paid by selling those fixed assets. Okay.
Ma'am, can you
Ma'am,
please
this
explain angel investors?
Are those investors who invest in the companies, like new startups and new entrepreneurs businesses, if they feel that their business has a profitability and commercial feasibility.
ma'am, ma'am, this equity share, preference share, all in one answer, ma'am. These points.
Yeah, actually, you can get a question like, see, if you are asked what are the sources of joint stock companies, you can write a brief about equity share, like own sources and borrowed sources. All right, covering all. I'll show you now.
Okay.
I'll show you. I'll show you.
Ma'am, can you explain about trade credit?
Let me. You asked me about the question, right? See, if a company, if in the exam, if you get what are the different sources of joint stock company, you are supposed to. Is this screen visible now? You are supposed to write a brief about that. If you get a question, what are the types of equity shares? Or sorry, types of preference shares. You are supposed to write this question. These are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
don't
Okay.
write about in detail about the types of preference shares under the types of sources. Are you
Okay, ma'am.
getting my point? When you are
Okay,
asked
ma'am.
about various sources of finance for joint, everything you should cover, but you are not supposed to explain the preferential types and differential types. No need
Okay,
to
ma'am.
explain there. When you explain, if you get a question, explain different types of preferential shares, you need to explain all these. If you get a question, explain different types of debentures, you need to explain that. Okay? Anything
Okay,
else?
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And trade credit. Trade credit.
Trade credit is like a borrowing from the public suppliers. Generally, borrowing from suppliers, not trade credit. I'll tell you. Wait. Generally, in the business, how companies make a credit sales. Similarly, they do make a credit purchases. In case of credit purchases, sometimes they need to give a bill, a document, a negotiable instrument called bill of exchange. Okay, so whatever raise the funds by using bills of exchange or from the suppliers, we call as a trade credit. Huh.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. I hope you all understand.
Ma'am, can you share the PPT?
I already shared. I already shared link.
Ma'am, learn the all units.
Sorry.
All units are learned.
All units are to be are important. You are asking.
Yes,
Ma'am, can
all
you
units are
explain once
important.
again?
I want.
Voice is
Ma'am,
so low. I'm not able to hear clearly.
all units are important.
Uh,
All units, how to
yes,
learn, ma'am?
yes. From every unit, you'll get questions in exam.
Okay.
So yeah, whatever I'm explaining, if you are thorough and like if you touch the relevant points, one or two relevant points related to the question asked, also you can score good marks, children.
Okay.
Instead of you write stories,
Definition meaning
if you touch
is very
relevant
important, ma'am.
points of uh,
Definition meaning is very important.
okay, right,
Ma'am, you
children.
didn't share any PPT.
I shared. I shared link. Just go back to the chat box. You will find.
Ma'am, PPT is not there.
No, ma'am. There is no PPT in chat box. Can you please share again?
1 second. Someone, instead of everyone, Saida, someone, Saida had gone. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Got?
Thank
Did
you.
you got now? Right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Meet next class with the last fifth chapter. And with that, we complete. Right.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Ah,
ఎగ్జామ్ ఫీజ్ డేట్ లాస్ట్ డేట్ ఎప్పుడుంది బ్రో?
ఎక్స్క్యూజ్ మీ బ్రాండ్స్ ఎవరైనా లింక్ పంపివరా వాట్సాప్ ది BOM ది చాట్ బాక్స్ లో పంపివరా?
already send చేశారు.
BOM సబ్జెక్ట్ కి గ్రూప్ ఉంది కదా, జాయిన్ అయ్యారు కదా, ఆ గ్రూప్ కి లింక్ పంపివరా?
ఆల్రెడీ షేర్ చేశారు కదా.
ఒక్కసారి నెంబర్ ఇస్తాను, నన్ను యాడ్ చేయ బ్రో.
నేను కాదు అడ్మిన్.
ఒక్కసారి సెండ్ చేయవా ఇప్పుడు జస్ట్ ప్రెసెంట్? అడ్మిన్ ఎవరు ఇక్కడ?
అడ్మిన్ వచ్చి రాహుల్ ఉన్నారు, చందు ఉన్నారు.
రాహుల్ బ్రో ఉన్నారా ఇప్పుడు ప్రెసెంట్ గా?
లేడు లేడు. షేర్ చేసాను చూడండి.
ఓకే 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 బ్రో.
హలో
హలో
పీపీటీ ఉందా? క్లాస్
హలో
హలో ఎస్టర్డే క్లాస్ ది పీపీటీ ఉందా అంటున్నా. హలో
బ్రో ఇది ఫస్ట్ సెమ్మే కదా? హలో బ్రో.
ఫస్ట్ సెమ్మే.
ఫస్ట్ సెమ్.
ఇది ఆన్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ ఎప్పటి నుంచి అవుతున్నాయండి?
ఇది 5th నుంచి. ఈ
ఫిఫ్త్
మంత్
నుంచి.
5th
ఆఫ్లైన్
నుంచి.
క్లాసెస్ ఎన్ని రోజులు అయ్యాయి?
ఆఫ్లైన్ ఇంకా లేదు. ఆఫ్లైన్
ఓకే.
అయితే లేదు.
మనకి ఇంకా సపరేట్ గ్రూప్ ఉందా బీకామ్ కి?
ఉన్నాయి. ఒక
మీ వాయిస్ క్లియర్ గా
2 గ్రూప్స్
రావట్లేదు.
ఉన్నాయి. 2 గ్రూప్స్ ఉన్నాయి. అది బీకామ్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ అకౌంట్ ఒకటి ఉంది.
ఓకే. బీకామ్ కంప్యూటర్స్?
తర్వాత బిఆర్ఓయు ఫస్ట్ సెమ్ అవుతుంది.
ఓకే.
అన్ని మిక్సింగ్ ఉన్నాయి. మిక్సింగ్ జనరల్ కంప్యూటర్స్.
అసలు ఎవరు అడ్మిన్ ఎవరు?
अरे पीपीटी भी जाओ ना यार ब्रो. ये एग्जाम
రాహుల్
कब से
అండ్
है?
చందు. ఎగ్జామ్
5th నుంచా?
5th.
అది అడ్మిన్ ఎవరో కొంచెం యాడ్ చేస్తారా నన్ను?
లింక్ పెట్టారు
రాహుల్
కదా,
అన్న.
లింక్ మీరు
నాకు
మీరు లింక్
కనిపించట్లేదు లింక్.
లింక్
జస్ట్ ఇప్పుడే
అనేది
పెట్టారు